Has a client ever ghosted you? Do you know what I mean? Ghosted you, like didn't call you back. And it was one of those conversations, maybe a couple of conversations you had with the client, and you're like, man, this deal is going through, man. This conversation is so good. I mean, the give and take, the quid pro quo, the conversation flow was there. In fact, you got off that phone call or video call, and you're like, man, this deal's done. You go tell your manager, this deal is done, and you're like feeling real confident. And then you follow up to kind of close or to advance the sale, and they won't call back. You send an email. Get nothing back. Leave another voicemail. Still nothing back. And you're like, that's it. They're not calling back. They have officially ghosted you. Has that ever happened? Of course it has. We've all had that experience. In sales, all of us have had that experience. So I don't think there's much you can do once a client decides to ghost you. But the question is, how do we prevent that in the future? Prevent future ghosting. Well, maybe I want you to imagine for a moment that meeting you have with the client is probably the only shot you're going to get at the apple, right, of winning that deal. Now, let me ask you a question. What qualifying question or questions would you ask to see if they're really serious about working with you? I want you to think about that for a second. What question or questions would you ask to see if they're really serious about working with you? Now, think of that question you have in your head. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to imagine yourself in the meeting with the client and you ask that question or questions. And what I want you to do is first, listen for the response that you get back. Is it what you expected? If it is what you expected, thumbs up. If it isn't what you expected, not good. But what they say is one thing, but then I want you to hear the tone. In terms of what they said, does it match with their tone? Because sometimes the tone doesn't lie. Words can lie. What they say can mean something else, but the tone always gives it away. Was the tone right? In other words, when I said yes, did it sound like a yes or did it sound like yeah? See the difference? That's a difference in tone. The third thing is look for body language. If not body language from here on down, how about facial expressions? In other words, really look at them. I mean, again, if you're doing a video conference call or a face-to-face call, really look at their face. And when you ask those qualifying questions, I want you to actually look at the face. Is it in line? Is it in sync with what they're saying? Now, the signals are all there. All you got to do is learn how to read them. And let's say you do ask that qualifying question, and the words are there, you hear it, but the tone and the facial expressions don't match. Well, guess what? That's a signal. That's not a bad thing, but at least tells you that maybe something's not right, that maybe you need to dig a little deeper and find out why they're not as confident as you'd like them to be in terms of taking it to the next step. So keep in mind, the only way to prevent ghosting is not after it's happened, it's before it happens. In other words, qualify them. Look for those buying signals. And sometimes you got to look for disqualifying buying signals because maybe they're going to tell you something you want to hear, but the tone isn't right, the expressions aren't right, and maybe even the words aren't right. My point is, sometimes we need to look at disqualifying buyers as well. So again, next time you're talking to a customer, what I want you to do is ask those key qualifying questions or questions. Ask them tough questions. Listen for what they say. Listen to the tone. Look at their facial expressions or body language. And then if something doesn't feel right, that is the moment to really ask the follow-up question to see, and maybe even challenge the customer, Mr. Customer. For example, you don't get the answer you want, the tone doesn't sound right, facial expressions are a little off. You say, based on the question I just asked you, Mr. Customer, it doesn't seem like you're convinced that this product or service can really help you. Is that a fair assessment? Oh, watch them squirm a little bit. But now at least you start getting to some real conversation. There's two ways they can respond. They can say, no, Victor, I really like it. And again, it's not convincing. Or maybe they say, no, I did have some questions, Victor, and I was hesitant to bring them up, and here they are. Perfect. Now we're having a conversation. Don't be afraid to challenge a customer, because let me tell you what will happen. You won't challenge the customer, and then you get off that call, you get off that phone call, or you'll get off that video call, and you won't know if they're in or out, if you don't really know. So now you're left waiting to see if this deal is going to come through or not. I don't know about you. I don't like guessing. I want my answer there and then. Are you in? Are you serious about buying our product or our service? I want to know. Like that, I don't have to wait around for you to get back to me, because if you're going to ghost me, I want to know now. Anyway, this is Victor Antonio with another Sales Influence Moment, always reminding you, selenate hard when you know how. Take care.